Today I'm ranking the best World War II movies from the 1970s. You'll see the classics, like Patton or A Bridge Too Far, but also some films you've probably missed. From epic battles with thousands of real extras to one movie that real generals hated, this decade had it all. The McKenzie Break is not your usual prison break movie. Director Lamont Johnson always looked for stories with real-world weight, and that's exactly what you get here. The plot sets things in motion. Late in World War II, a British intelligence officer is brought in to investigate a German escape plan at a Scottish camp. It's rare to see a war film focus on Germans trying to get out. Most films stick with Allied prisoners, but this one flips the perspective, and it's all the more authentic for it. The McKenzie Break pulls together an international cast and crew, shot in Ireland, set in Scotland with British, American, and German actors, and produced by Americans. The Germans actually speak German throughout, not just broken English. That detail does a lot for the atmosphere. In real life, there was never a successful German escape from any British camp. Only one managed to get out of Canada and make it back home. But the movie draws on real incidents, especially what happened at Cultiebraggen Camp 21 in Scotland, a place built specifically to hold the most hardcore Nazi troublemakers. In reality, Polish guards, guys who'd escaped from Poland after it fell, kept the place in line, and they had zero patience for any German antics. Too Late the Hero, directed by Robert Aldrich, drops you right in the Pacific during World War II. The story centers on interpreter Sam Lawson, played by Cliff Robertson. He's managed to dodge combat up to this point, but suddenly he's picked for a high-risk mission. Join a reluctant British unit and destroy a Japanese communications base deep in the jungle. Most of the soldiers are just trying to survive. Patriotism is the last thing on anyone's mind. The film leans hard into that realism. These aren't clean-cut heroes, they're just men trying to get out alive. Too Late the Hero works best when it leans into its gritty jungle setting. The film has some pacing issues, sometimes it drags, but the action and the mood always come back. Production was massive, but it didn't pay off. After all the numbers came in, the movie ended up losing nearly $7 million, one of the worst financial hits ABC Films ever took. Aldrich admitted later that the film's failure meant every future project at the studio came under heavy scrutiny. Even years later, he never understood why this one, The Flight of the Phoenix and The Grissom Gang, didn't connect. He thought they were all marvelous movies. Kelly's Heroes doesn't pretend to be a serious war movie or try to teach a history lesson. This is World War II by way of 1970s Hollywood, with every detail played for pure entertainment. And that's exactly why it works. The whole thing is a heist caper. Clint Eastwood leads a group of American soldiers across occupied France, all after a stash of Nazi gold. Along the way, the film brings in Telly Savalas and Donald Sutherland, both Dirty Dozen alums. They didn't cut corners with the production either. Most of the movie was shot in Yugoslavia, since the Yugoslavian army still had a big stockpile of Sherman tanks in the 70s. That kind of detail pays off. Say what you want about the story, but the tanks on screen look right, and you can tell they put the work in. There's always been this legend about the studio meddling with Kelly's Heroes. Clint Eastwood said it flat out in interviews. MGM recut the movie, took out whole scenes that actually developed the characters and made the story deeper. He never got over that. The Eagle Has Landed goes all in on the what-if scenario, a fictional German commando raid on British soil. Directed by John Sturges, the film follows a Fallschirmjäger unit led by Michael Caine's colonel, dropped into Norfolk disguised as Polish troops. The whole plan: kidnap Winston Churchill. Naturally, nothing goes to plan. The Germans wind up in an English village fighting it out with the local Home Guard and Allied forces. In Europe, the film did well, but it never got the attention it deserved in America, overshadowed by the bigger World War II movies from the 60s and 70s. Michael Caine, looking back, always had mixed feelings about this one. He liked the setup and the shoot, but he admitted in his autobiography that Sturges was checked out. He only took the job for the paycheck so he could go deep-sea fishing. Once the filming wrapped, Sturges was gone. Never came back for editing or post-production, and Caine always wondered what the movie could have been with a more invested director. Even with that, the finished film keeps you watching. The Germans, for once, aren't cardboard villains, and you end up almost rooting for them. There's a reason this one's got a loyal cult following. 1970 was packed with big war movies. Patton, Kelly's Heroes, The McKenzie Break. Tora came out right in the middle of that wave, but did something totally different. The American and Japanese sides teamed up here. Richard Fleischer directed the American parts, Toshio Masuda and Kinji Fukasaku did the Japanese. The result is a film that actually takes its time to show both perspectives instead of just doing the usual Hollywood flag waving. They based the whole thing on military historian Ladislas Farrago's research, and you can see how much work went into the details. Some of the technical advisors were actually involved in Pearl Harbor back in 1941. 3 years of prep, 8 months of shooting, American and Japanese directors trading notes. Even the Japanese side gets real input here, not just bad guys for the Americans to shoot at. Tora tells the story of Pearl Harbor like it really happened. Slow burn, a ton of buildup, all the moving pieces. Some critics thought it was dull, but if you want to see how both sides got there, the mistakes, the planning, the screw-ups, this is about as real as it gets. Soldier of Orange tells the real story of Erich Haselhoff, a university student who winds up in the Dutch resistance during World War II. It follows him and his friends, each taking different paths as the Nazis occupy the Netherlands. One turns collaborator, another is Jewish and tries to keep his head down. Some join the resistance with everything they've got. The film goes deep. It's not just a hero story, it's about survival, betrayal, and some truly tough choices. The film is based on Erich Haselhoff Rolf Zima's memoirs. He's not just a character, but a genuine war hero. He joined the student resistance, then the Royal Air Force, then became an aide to Queen Wilhelmina in exile in London. Rutger Hauer plays Erich, and it's one of his earliest big roles for director Paul Verhoeven. You can already see Verhoeven's style here: rough realism, uncomfortable violence, and a lot more honesty than you usually get in war films. Sometimes even a little too much for audiences at the time, and that's why the film isn't particularly well known. This is the original Inglorious Bastards, not Tarantino's version, but Enzo Castellari's Italian war film from 1978. Set in France, 1944, you've got a bunch of American military prisoners who escape and try to get to Switzerland. On the way, they get pulled into a mission to steal a German V-2 rocket warhead for the Allies. Bo Svensson and Fred Williamson lead the group, and instead of just hiding, their squad ends up in the thick of things, right alongside a captured German who knows the way. At one point, they accidentally ambush an American commando unit on their own secret mission. From there, it's a last-ditch, against-all-odds adventure. The movie borrows a lot from The Dirty Dozen: characters you like, a sense of humor, non-stop action. It's definitely not historically accurate, but that's never the point. It's all about the spirit. Big personalities, crazy set pieces, and that manic energy you only find in old grindhouse movies. Not the best war film ever made, but it's got a staying power most big-budget productions can only dream about. Sam Peckinpah's Cross of Iron takes you right to the Eastern Front. German soldiers in retreat from the Soviets in 1943. The main character, Sergeant Steiner, played by James Coburn, is a veteran just trying to keep his squad alive while the army falls apart around them. There's also this class clash. Steiner's up against an aristocrat officer, and their rivalry runs through the whole movie. What sets Cross of Iron apart is the level of realism. The battle scenes are extremely violent and full of detail. Uniforms, tactics, weapons, even real T-34 tanks. Peckinpah used choreography that borders on documentary-level accuracy, and the whole film was shot to feel as gritty and hopeless as the real Eastern Front. You see the war through the eyes of German soldiers, and it treats them as people caught up in history, not cardboard villains. The story comes from Willy Heinrich's novel. He actually fought on the Eastern Front, and you can feel that experience in the film. It shows how tough and pointless war really is, especially for the men stuck fighting it. This one is Richard Attenborough's massive take on Operation Market Garden, the Allied plan to capture bridges in the Netherlands in 1944. The script comes from William Goldman, based on Cornelius Ryan's book, and the cast list is just endless. Robert Redford, Sean Connery, Gene Hackman, Anthony Hopkins, Michael Caine, and more. It's almost an anthology with every star getting a big moment, but it's not always for the best. The movie got mixed reviews when it came out. Roger Ebert called it the longest B-grade war movie ever made. A lot of critics said the same. Too long, too many stars in tiny roles, maybe too much going on. But it's still worth a watch just to see how epic the film is, how carefully Attenborough staged the battles. There's no CGI, just real locations, thousands of extras, and massive action set pieces. The famous river crossing, the parachute drops, every bit of it was staged and shot with all practical effects. If you want to see the scale of World War II, this is one of the best for showing how huge and costly these operations really were. Patton tells the story of General George Patton, probably the most famous and most controversial American general of World War II. The opening scene with George C. Scott in front of that giant flag is legendary. It's almost word for word what the real Patton used to say to his troops before D-Day. Making Patton wasn't easy. The Spanish army, which was supposed to help with filming, refused at first. They couldn't believe Patton was really that much of a bastard, and they didn't want the movie to insult the military. Producer Frank McCarthy had to get approval from the U.S. Army's own historians just to convince them. The movie was a huge hit, over $61 million at the box office. Patton's own family, who'd never wanted a film about him, loved it. The movie ended up changing how the public saw Patton, a real person, not just a legend. It never shies away from his dark side, and it's still one of the best war films ever made.